In 1996, someone began secretly siphoning sensitive data from the Pentagon, NASA, and American nuclear laboratories, without anyone understanding how. And what if this operation, later dubbed Moonlight Maze, had silently changed the history of cyber warfare forever? In the tense cold of the post-Cold War era, the world is still holding its breath. The tanks fall silent, the missiles remain frozen in their silos, but beneath the surface, another army awakens. In December 1991, the Soviet Union dissolves, a shattered empire, the red flag torn from the Kremlin. Yet nothing truly disappears. The shadow remains. The services, the invisible barracks, the ears and eyes of the former regime regroup in a new shell. The Russian Federation. Same cities, new insignia. Same buildings, new promises. The heart of Soviet intelligence does not die. It changes name, mask, and method. It learns to live in a world without iron curtains, but with glass cables. In the West, another network is spreading. Invisible, tentacled, made of electrical impulses and light. In the mid-1990s, the internet stops being an academic toy. It becomes a river. Campuses flow into it. Laboratories dive into it. Federal agencies immerse their data in it, without yet grasping the strength of the current. The United States links together universities, research centers, government and military networks. Lines intersect. Routers blink in air-conditioned rooms where men keep watch, confident. Unix rules over these robust, austere machines, forged for science and war. The TCP/IP protocol connects continents, opens doors between military bases, NASA, the Department of Defense, and energy laboratories. Research travels, plans circulate, knowledge slips along dark fibers. But this interconnection is a double-edged promise. Dependence grows. Unix systems become the backbone of American power. Defense, energy, space, and the federal administration rely on them. Accounts pile up. Access points multiply. Passwords are typed in haste, often in clear text, sent like postcards into a night filled with invisible eyes. A new frontier opens, and the United States approaches it with no doctrine, no carved-in-stone law, no clear strategy. Each of its agencies moves forward alone, with its own engineers, makeshift firewalls, and belated patches. The Department of Defense watches its own flanks. The Department of Energy protects its laboratories. NASA defends its missions, each in its own lane. There is not yet any grand federal stance on cybersecurity, no single banner to unite the defenses. Technicians stand guard, but no general yet commands this new army. Starting in 1995, murmurs begin to rise from university basements. Strange traces appear in system logs, connections that should not exist, accounts logging in at improbable hours from impossible locations. People assume errors, clumsy mistakes, but the anomalies repeat. On Unix systems open to the world, intruders slip in like silent thieves. Universities, research laboratories, networks tied to defense begin to feel a foreign breath on their necks. The first administrators see commands scroll by that they did not type. They discover unknown files, programs hidden in system nooks and crannies. They stumble upon tools with technical names, sniffers that, like nets cast across the digital river, secretly capture passwords that pass in clear text over the network. The credentials of researchers, officers, engineers fall into invisible hands. The intruders bounce from server to server, erasing their tracks behind them. They enter through one compromised account, then another, then a third, until no one can say where the path begins. Hop-by-hop connections take shape. A zigzagging route through university servers, academic machines, sometimes even entire countries. Waypoints turn into relays, honest systems into unwitting springboards. The shadow slips through machines that never asked for this, that do not know they now serve another master. Incidents multiply, and the first calls reach the military authorities. The Air Force Office of Special Investigations, AFOSI, enters the scene. The Air Force investigators focus on defense-related research systems. They discover the same signatures, stolen accounts, capture tools, strange transfers. The security teams of the Department of Defense join forces. Specialists dig through the guts of Unix systems, hunt down flaws in network daemons, those services that endlessly talk to the rest of the world. They find old vulnerabilities, known, documented, but never fixed. Patches exist, but have not been applied everywhere, out of negligence, delay, ignorance. The intruders, on the other hand, know. They exploit these breaches like doors left ajar. The same flaws come back, again, again, again. A pattern emerges. Nothing is left to chance. This is a methodical, patient hunt, advancing from system to system, from database to database. American institutions are beginning to organize. In the closed rooms of the NSA, at the heart of windowless facilities, analysts track flows, packets, the faint traces of an adversary who fires no bullets but still strikes at the heart of secrets. The National Security Agency, guardian of communications, takes on its share. It monitors entire networks, dissects intrusions, correlates signatures, times, paths. Other intelligence agencies support it. The enemy is not on a visible battlefield. It hides in sequences of bits. The FBI, for its part, steps in to give this war a judicial form. The Federal Bureau begins building teams specialized in cybercrime, in digital counterintelligence. New investigators learn to read not only paper files, but logs, network captures, disk images. Traditional laws meet a new territory, with no clear borders, no fingerprints, where evidence erases itself if you wait too long. The Department of Defense strengthens its lines. Its Defense Information Systems Agency, DISA, deploys its experts. Military computer emergency response teams rise as outposts. They analyze, alert, patch. On the civilian side, the CERT Coordination Center at Carnegie Mellon observes, inventories, coordinates. Universities, labs, public bodies begin sharing indicators, addresses, signatures. Bridges are built between military and civilian worlds, each bringing fragments of a larger puzzle. Little by little, the pieces come together. The same patterns reappear in incidents that, until then, had seemed unrelated. It starts with a single compromised account, then a sniffer deployed on a network segment, then a rootkit installed at the heart of the system to hide the intruder's presence, camouflage processes, falsify commands. System logs are emptied, riddled, twisted. Dates disappear. Suspicious connections vanish. Hidden channels open in ordinary traffic, like vaults concealed in a river, allowing data to slip out without raising an alarm. Connections follow strange patterns. They bounce off servers in several countries, as if hesitating, as if hiding in the crowd. Yet behind this dispersion, a regularity takes shape. The paths look alike. The times overlap. Identical code segments, twin scripts, are found on very different systems. And then another clue carries full weight. The endpoints. Those ranges of IP addresses that, despite all the hops, end up repeating. Again and again, they point to infrastructures, access providers, networks located in Russia. Investigators write down these icy numbers. They do not yet write a name. They do not yet accuse a state. But the map is beginning to take on the same color, over there, in the east. In 1996, then in early 1997, a choice appears, heavy with consequences. American agencies can close the compromised accesses, force password changes, unplug machines, put out the fire. Or they can watch, leave the door ajar, monitor what goes in and out, understand. They choose vigilant waiting. On some networks, defenders decide not to immediately cut off the intruders. On the contrary, they set a stage. They improve logging, deepen the logs, install intrusion detection systems. Every command typed by the enemy, every file transferred, every address contacted becomes a piece of evidence. Systems turn into traps, where the other side is left to believe it advances freely, while every step is recorded. At the federal level, information stops remaining isolated in each agency's drawers. Centralization efforts are put in place. Incidents that had until then been treated as local stories, a security breach at a university, a suspicious access in a laboratory, a strange problem in a military network, are revealed to be related. Analysts draw lines between these points. They see an alarming constellation emerge. Internal reports change tone. They no longer speak only of opportunistic pirates, of reckless young hackers. They describe a campaign, structured, persistent. The targets are not chosen at random. Defense, space research, energy, universities linked by contract to the federal government. The methods are recurring, disciplined. The enemy comes back, patiently, day after day, month after month. On the eve of 1997, a feeling grows in the hallways of American security and intelligence. Something large-scale is underway. An operation, not yet named, slow, silent, spread out over time. Sensitive networks are already affected. Evidence is piling up. Exfiltration of documents, transfer of blueprints, copying of source code, theft of ongoing research. But outside, silence reigns. The public knows nothing. Press releases say nothing. Conversations remain locked in secure rooms, in reports stamped with the seal of secrecy. Yet, in the shadows, the protagonists are getting ready. Teams are created, tasked with developing a more coordinated response. There is debate about the adversary's modes of action, its origin, its objectives. The United States senses that it is no longer facing a series of isolated incidents, but a new front. Starting in 1997, the scattered incidents come together in the investigators' minds. Teams from the Department of Defense, the NSA, the FBI line up the dates, the signatures, the targets. They see a single hand behind hundreds of fingers. The same logic pervades all these acts. At the heart of internal documents, this campaign is given a name: Moonlight Maze, the labyrinth in the moonlight. An image of nocturnal corridors, winding paths, an invisible enemy advancing under a pale light, between shadows and reflections. Moonlight Maze becomes a code word to designate an unprecedented challenge. The boundaries of this investigation are drawn. It will cover the networks of the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, NASA's systems, but also the universities and research laboratories that live on federal contracts. Researchers studying aeronautics, weapons, energy, space become targets of strategic importance. Their machines, once ordinary, light up like fortified positions. An interagency cell takes shape. Around the same table sit technical analysts, investigators, counterintelligence specialists. They speak the same language, that of digital traces and network flows, but each carries a different mission: understand, prove, attribute. Moonlight Maze is no longer a confused noise. It is an operation to be monitored day by day. The targets gradually reveal themselves. At the Department of Defense, systems containing information on military planning are hit. Logistics data, technological diagrams, advanced research are copied, siphoned off. At the Department of Energy, the national laboratories, guardians of nuclear, energy, and cutting-edge science research, in turn discover the intruder's marks. They host programs whose value goes far beyond the imagination of a simple thief. NASA is not spared. Its networks, loaded with technical data on space missions, orbital platforms, scientific experiments, are visited without authorization. The intruders are interested in details, in blueprints, in code, in research results. They seek the innermost workings of American technology. Universities become privileged doors. Behind the quiet facades of libraries and lecture halls, their research systems operate, often connected to projects funded by the federal government. Defense, aeronautics, energy. The same keywords return. The intruders find pathways there to more protected networks, entry points that are less monitored, more open, in an ecosystem where scientific collaboration has long mattered more than digital defense. Later, American officials will speak of large volumes of exfiltrated data, technical blueprints, source code, research documents, administrative information. They will speak of gigabytes, of mountains of files. But in those years, 1997, 1998, what matters is not only the quantity, it is the duration, the persistence. The enemy stays. He returns. He learns. His techniques gradually become apparent. Always those vulnerabilities in Unix network daemons, long known, never patched everywhere. They allow the attackers to gain elevated privileges, to become masters of the system. The sniffers keep capturing passwords in clear text, slipping from one machine to another, extending the footprint of the attack. Rootkits are installed, like poisoned roots, altering system commands, hiding malicious files and processes. The logs, once again, are erased, altered, twisted, so that the intruder's path is lost in oblivion. Data exfiltration, meanwhile, is carried out through hidden channels. Some connections are encrypted. Others hide transfers inside ordinary traffic, amid legitimate exchanges, like secret letters slipped into a bag of official mail. Multi-hop relay chains mask the origin. Compromised systems in several countries serve as springboards, creating a forest of false starting points. Then comes the discovery that crystallizes the suspicions: a relay server in Russia. American investigators identify a Unix machine there as a major node in the labyrinth. This server, located at a Russian internet service provider, appears as a pivot, a crossroads, a hub through which many connections to the compromised American networks pass. Its name, its address, its exact location will later appear in public documents. But from this moment on, it becomes, for the investigators, a key piece of the puzzle. The United States must then cross a sensitive line. They officially request help from the Russian authorities. The goal is to access this server's logs, to see what happened there. A cooperation begins, limited, cautious, like a dance between former adversaries. Technicians examine certain elements of the server together. The Americans do not directly control the machine. They observe through the filter of this fragile collaboration. What they find there confirms their fears. Files and tools related to the intrusions into American systems lie on this relay server. Direct traces of connections to networks of the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, NASA, and universities. For those who see this evidence, the link with Moonlight Maze is now beyond doubt. But political attribution remains on hold, wrapped in precautions. Meanwhile, the defenders adopt a risky but necessary strategy. On some systems, they leave the intruders active, under close surveillance. Every command from the adversary is recorded. Every access attempt is logged. More advanced intrusion detection systems are deployed. Logging mechanisms become more precise, more comprehensive. The captured traffic reveals scripts, tools, encryption methods. Analysts at the NSA and other technical entities study these artifacts, identifying habits, mistakes, even the enemy's style. The activities observed on the networks of the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, NASA, and the universities echo each other. They appear synchronized. The same types of scans, the same hours of activity, the same sequences of commands. It is orchestration. A single campaign, not a disordered shower of isolated attacks. Moonlight Maze takes shape as a strategic operation, a systematic effort of computer espionage. In response, the internal U.S. reaction hardens. From 1998 to 1999 onward, strengthened security directives are disseminated in federal agencies. Officials demand the accelerated application of security patches. Password policies are revised, networks are segmented. Links are cut. Systems that were previously generously open to one another are compartmentalized. Massive security audits are launched in the systems of the DoD, DOE, NASA, and other organizations. Every flaw is hunted down, every vulnerability already exploited or potentially exploitable. Firewalls become widespread. Intrusion detection systems are deployed more broadly. Formalized incident response procedures are developed. System administrators in universities and laboratories under federal contract receive alerts, guides, and training. Those that used to be easy entry points, because they were not designed to be fortresses, become monitored checkpoints. On the political and diplomatic stage, debates open in the corridors of power. How should these intrusions be labeled? Are they simple criminal acts, classic espionage by other means, or a new form of aggression? Within the U.S. government, officials discuss the scale of Moonlight Maze, the nature of the stolen information, the sophistication of the attack. Eyes turn toward Moscow. Between Washington and the Russian capital, diplomatic contacts are taking place, exchanges on cybercrime, on information security. But no public statement has yet formally pointed a finger at any state. The technical indicators say Russia. The infrastructures speak that language. But official statements remain measured, cautious, locked into ambiguous formulations. In 1999, however, the secrecy begins to crack. The existence of Operation Moonlight Maze is brought to light by American officials. Articles appear in major media outlets. The public discovers that the networks of the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, NASA, and several universities have been infiltrated for years. Official voices confirm that large quantities of sensitive data were copied and transferred abroad. Officials speak of an unprecedented campaign. The length, the scale, the sophistication. Moonlight Maze is presented as one of the first major large-scale computer espionage operations directed against the United States. The name, until then locked away in classified documents, spreads through newspapers, briefings, and public debates. It becomes a reference point. Then comes the ebb. From 1999 onward, little by little, the activities attributed to Moonlight Maze decrease on U.S. government networks. The strengthened security measures produce their effect. Compromised systems are cleaned, shut down, hardened. Stolen accounts are deactivated. Rootkits are hunted down and removed. Vulnerable software is updated. Intrusion patterns specific to Moonlight Maze stop appearing on monitored networks. Public reports mention the interruption of these activities, even if, behind the scenes, everyone knows that an adversary who has shown such patience can choose to change its skin. The full extent of the damage remains largely hidden. U.S. officials acknowledge that both classified and unclassified but sensitive data have been exfiltrated. Information on weapons systems, scientific research, elements related to critical infrastructures. They speak of an operation that lasted several years, at least from 1996 to 1999, with a persistent presence in many networks. The total amount of stolen data cannot be publicly quantified. It is described as very significant, without further detail. The complete lists of compromised documents remain secret, locked behind secure doors, because much of this information is still too sensitive. On the question of attribution, a thin but steady thread runs through public sources. U.S. officials recall that the infrastructures used, the relay servers, the bounce points, were located in Russia. Public analyses mention the strong likelihood of the involvement of actors linked to the Russian state, given the targets and the sophistication of the operation. Yet no clear, definitive official statement points to a specific Russian government entity. The U.S. government keeps its cards close to its chest. In later studies and reports, Moonlight Maze is often cited as an early example of a computer espionage operation associated with Russia. But the most detailed intelligence elements remain classified, beyond public view. For American institutions, Moonlight Maze is not only a wound, it is a turning point. The Department of Defense strengthens its cybersecurity capabilities. Intrusion detection and response to persistent threats are now described as pillars of national defense. The affair helps create, at the federal level, an awareness of a vital need: dedicated cyber defense structures, real commands for this new domain. Later developments, specialized entities within the DoD and the Department of Homeland Security, find part of their origin there. The lessons of Moonlight Maze permeate information systems security policies. Vulnerability management, network monitoring, and the protection of sensitive data are called into question. Training and awareness programs on cybersecurity are developed for administrators, managers, and users in federal agencies and partner institutions. It is no longer just about guarding physical doors, but defending invisible doors, open to the rest of the world. In public and academic analyses, Moonlight Maze gains a unique place. It is classified among the first major documented transnational computer espionage operations targeting the United States. It is becoming a case study in work on information warfare, cyber defense, and national security. It is cited to explain the danger of persistent intrusions, the scope of data exfiltration, and the difficulty of attribution. Lawyers and strategists use it to fuel debates on the legal characterization of this type of attack. Espionage? Hostile act? Act of war? Moonlight Maze carries weight in the reflection on the responses a state can, or must, provide to this kind of silent aggression. Little by little, the affair will also influence public and political perception of the vulnerability of American digital infrastructures. The idea that a distant adversary can slip into the heart of networks, copy armament secrets, penetrate nuclear laboratories, float through NASA's systems, takes root in people's minds. The line between peace and conflict becomes blurred. It shifts into fiber optics, into undersea cables, into servers and firewalls. On the technical level, Moonlight Maze becomes a reference point. The characteristics of the operation, the targets, the methods, the infrastructure, serve as a basis of comparison for later campaigns, often attributed to Russian actors. Cybersecurity companies and research institutions refer to Moonlight Maze as an ancestor, a precursor of intrusion groups that will later receive other names. Yet in official public documents, there never appears a complete, detailed attribution chain linking Moonlight Maze exhaustively to these more recent operations. Too many elements remain classified. Too many cards stay in the shadows. In the realm of security practices, however, the legacy is concrete. Security patches are now applied more systematically. Vulnerability management becomes a discipline, no longer a chore left to chance. The use of clear-text passwords on networks is gradually abandoned. More robust authentication mechanisms become widespread. Sniffers, which once easily captured credentials, lose part of their power. Logging capabilities, event correlation, and digital forensics analysis are strengthened. Response teams can reconstruct more precisely the path of an intrusion and the extent of the damage. Scenarios inspired by Moonlight Maze enter cybersecurity exercises and crisis simulations. The story of this invisible enemy that slips into systems under a virtual moonlight is replayed in order to be better prepared. In specialized works, in expert reports, in academic articles, Moonlight Maze comes up again and again. It marks a milestone. It signals the moment when the world shifts from a few isolated hacks, often linked to individuals, to structured, prolonged, strategic campaigns conducted against states. But despite all this work, some areas remain in the dark. We do not know the attacker's internal organization, nor their chain of command, nor the exact volume of data stolen. These answers probably sleep in classified archives, in reports that will never see the public light of day. Behind this name are the sleepless nights of analysts, the pulsing cables, the relay servers lost in the back alleys of a Russian internet service provider, the decisions made in windowless rooms. There is also a lesson engraved in the silence of the networks. In the new world, no fortress is impregnable, and those who believe they are at peace may already be, without knowing it, at the heart of the maze.